My name is Linda, and I am 52 years old, and I have lived in the city of Springfield in the state of Illinois for my entire life. And there is something you should know about people from the Midwest, because we are generally very kind and very patient, but we do not like it when people act like they are better than everyone else, or when they treat our elderly family members with disrespect. I have spent the last 20 years of my life being a dedicated mother to my two sons and a supportive wife to my husband, who works at the local insurance company. And my life usually revolves around my family and my community and the many sporting events that my children participate in over the years. My youngest son, whose name is Marcus, is a very talented basketball player, and he plays for a travel team that goes all over the state to compete in big tournaments. And this story takes place during a very hot and humid weekend in July when the temperature was nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit and the air felt like a wet blanket. We were at the big multi-sport complex on the south side of Springfield for the annual Midsummer Classic basketball tournament. And this building is massive with 12 different basketball courts all under one roof, and the sound of hundreds of basketballs bouncing at once is enough to give anyone a headache. But for a basketball mom like me, it is the sound of excitement and competition. I was there with my mother-in-law, whose name is Dorothy, and Dorothy is 80 years old, and she is the sweetest woman you will ever meet, but she has a very bad hip, and she cannot stand for a long time without feeling a lot of pain, so I always make sure to get to the gym early to find a good spot on the bleachers or a bench where she can sit and watch her grandson play without being crowded. On this particular Saturday morning, we arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning because Marcus had a game at 9 o'clock, and we found a perfect wooden bench right next to court number 4 where he was scheduled to play. And I put down my large canvas tote bag and my cooler full of water bottles and Dorothy's specialized orthopedic cushion to mark our spot. We sat there for over an hour watching the earlier game finish up, and Dorothy was telling me stories about when her late husband used to play basketball in high school, and it was a very nice and peaceful morning until the group of girls arrived. These girls looked like they were in their early 20s, and they were dressed in very expensive matching athletic gear that looked like it had never actually seen a drop of sweat, and they were carrying professional cameras and large ring lights and tripods as if they were preparing for a professional photo shoot instead of a youth basketball tournament. There were 5 of them in total, and they were led by a tall girl with blonde hair tied in a very tight ponytail who seemed to be the leader of the group. And she was looking around the gym with an expression of pure disgust, as if the very air we were breathing was not clean enough for her. They marched right up to our bench and did not even say hello or excuse me, and the blonde leader looked at our bags, and then looked at Dorothy, and then she looked at her friends and rolled her eyes. I watched as the blonde girl reached down and picked up my canvas tote bag and just dropped it onto the dirty floor, and then she grabbed the cooler and pushed it aside with her foot, so it slid several feet away, and I was so shocked by this behavior that I could not even speak for a moment. Then the blonde girl looked at Dorothy, who was sitting quietly on her cushion, and the girl said that they needed this bench because the lighting from the overhead windows was perfect for the social media content they were filming for their college dance team, and she told Dorothy that she needed to move immediately. Dorothy looked up at her with her kind blue eyes and said that she was sorry but her hip was hurting, and she needed to sit down to watch her grandson play, but the girl just scoffed and said that there was plenty of floor space for old people, and she actually reached out and put her hand on Dorothy's shoulder and gave her a firm shove to try and get her to slide off the end of the bench. I felt a surge of anger that I have never felt before in my entire life, because you do not ever touch my mother-in-law, and you certainly do not treat her like she is an obstacle in your way. So I stood up, and I stepped between the blonde girl and Dorothy, and I told her in a very firm voice that she needed to take her hands off my family and find somewhere else to go. The blonde girl laughed and told me that her father was a very important donor to the university, and that they had reserved this area for their team photos even though there were no signs and no official reservations for public benches in this complex. I told her that she was lying and that she was being incredibly rude, and that if she did not move her cameras and her tripods, I would call the tournament director. But she just ignored me and started setting up her equipment right on top of our space. I tried to find an official to help us, but the tournament director was busy dealing with a fight that had broken out on Court 10, and the teenage volunteers at the front desk told me that they did not get paid enough to deal with bench disputes. So I went back to the bench and found that the girls had completely taken over the area, and Dorothy was standing up leaning against a cold metal pole looking very tired and in pain. I felt so small and so defeated because these girls were younger and faster, and they had a large audience of people watching them on their phones, and they were even filming me and calling me a mean name for the internet to see. I felt like I had failed to protect Dorothy, and I felt like these entitled young women were going to get away with being bullies just because they thought they were famous on the internet. But then I realized something very important about people who live their lives through a camera lens. They care about appearances more than anything else in the world, and they cannot stand it when their perfect image is ruined by something messy or uncool, and that gave me the idea for my plan. I looked at Dorothy, and I told her to go sit in one of the folding chairs I had managed to borrow from a friendly coach on the other side of the court, and I told her to trust me, because I was going to make sure those girls regretted being mean to her. The girls were finally ready to start their big photo shoot, and they were all lined up on the bench in their matching outfits, and they were pouting their lips and posing like models, while the blonde girl's boyfriend took pictures with a very expensive digital single-lens reflex camera. They were trying to look like they were the stars of the tournament, even though they were not even playing in it, and they wanted the background to look professional and clean for their fans. I decided that I was going to be the most annoying person in the history of Springfield, and I walked right over to the bench, and I sat down dead center in the middle of their shot. And I did not just sit there quietly, because I started rummaging through my bag and pulling out a very large and very messy egg salad sandwich that I had brought for lunch. I made sure to open the plastic wrap very loudly, and the smell of the eggs and onions began to waft through the air, and the girls started screaming and waving their hands in front of their noses, saying that I was gross, and that I was ruining their aesthetic. The blonde girl yelled at me to move, but I just smiled at her with a mouth full of egg salad, and I told her that this was a public bench, and I was just enjoying my lunch while I watched my son play his game. Every time the photographer tried to take a picture, I would lean forward or move my arms or hold up a bright neon orange water bottle, so that it was the only thing you could see in the frame. And the girls were getting more and more frustrated because they could not get a single shot that did not have a middle-aged mom eating a sandwich in the middle of it. They tried to move to the other end of the bench, but I just slid right along with them, and I started talking very loudly to a woman. I did not even know about my son's recent physical examination and his issues with foot fungus, because I knew they were recording video with sound, and I wanted to make sure their audio was completely unusable. The blonde girl was nearly in tears because she said they were on a tight schedule, and they had to post these photos to satisfy their brand sponsors by noon. But I did not care about her sponsors or her schedule because she had pushed my mother-in-law, and that was unforgivable. I then pulled out a large bottle of sunscreen and started applying it to my arms and legs, and I was very messy with it, so that white streaks of cream were everywhere. And I accidentally flicked a little bit of it onto the blonde girl's expensive leggings, and she let out a shriek that was so loud it actually stopped the basketball game for a second. The referee looked over at us, and I just gave him a polite wave and a smile like nothing was wrong, while the girls were losing their minds and calling me every bad word they could think of. But the more they screamed, the more people started to look at them and realize how ridiculous they were being. A small crowd of other parents started to gather because they had seen how the girls treated Dorothy earlier, and they started to join in on my plan by standing right behind the girls and making funny faces or holding up signs for their own kids, so that the background of the photos was a chaotic mess of cheering parents, instead of the sleek professional look the girls wanted. The blonde girl finally snapped, and she tried to grab my sandwich out of my hand to throw it away, but I was ready for her, and I moved my hand quickly, so she missed and tripped over her own tripod, and she went tumbling onto the floor in a very ungraceful pile of limbs and expensive camera equipment. The camera lens hit the floor with a sickening crack, and the ring light shattered into 100 tiny pieces, and the whole gym went silent for a beat before a few people started to laugh, because it was the ultimate moment of karma. The girls were so embarrassed that they started crying and scrambling to pick up their broken gear, and they realized that they were no longer the cool influencers in the room, but they were the villains who had been defeated by a bunch of basketball moms from central Illinois. They gathered their things and practically ran out of the building, while the blonde girl was still sobbing about her broken camera and how her life was over. But I just sat there on the bench and finished my sandwich, and I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I went over to Dorothy, and I helped her back to our original spot on the bench, and she was laughing so hard that there were tears in her eyes, and she told me that she had never seen anything so funny in all her 80 years of living. We sat there for the rest of the day, and we watched Marcus win both of his games, and we shared a bag of popcorn and some cold sodas. And I realized that revenge does not have to be violent or cruel to be effective, because sometimes all you have to do is be the most inconvenient person in the world to someone who thinks they are the center of the universe. When we finally got home that night, I saw that the girls had tried to post a video of me calling me a monster. But the comments were full of people who had been at the tournament, and they were all telling the truth about how the girls had treated an elderly woman, and the girls ended up having to delete their entire social media account because the backlash was so bad. My son Marcus thought the whole thing was legendary, and his teammates started calling me the bench protector, which is a title I wear with a lot of pride. I learned that day that no matter how old you are or how much money you have, you should always be kind to people, because you never know when a mom from Springfield with an egg salad sandwich is going to be standing in your way. And I am happy to say that Dorothy's hip felt much better the next day, because she spent so much time laughing at those girls. The tournament was a huge success, and we have a new family story that we will tell at every Thanksgiving and Christmas for the next 50 years, and every time I see a group of young people with a tripod, I just smile to myself and remember the day I won the battle of the bench, and proved that respect is much more important than followers or likes on a computer screen. And that is the end of my story about how I defended my family and showed some entitled college girls that they should never mess with. Mother who has nothing to lose but her lunch. I still have that canvas tote bag, and it still has a little bit of dust on it from the gym floor to remind me of the victory, and every time I look at it, I feel like I am 18 years old again and full of fire, and I know that I will always stand up for what is right no matter who is standing in my way. Springfield is a quiet town most of the time, but on that Saturday it was the site of a great justice, and I am glad I was the one to deliver it with a side of onions and extra mayonnaise. Since that day, Dorothy has been even more spirited, and she even started going to the gym to do water aerobics so she can stay strong for the next tournament, and she always tells people that her daughter-in-law is a secret agent for grandmother rights, and we all just laugh because in a way it is true. The girls never came back to our local tournaments, and I heard they transferred to a different school out of state because they were so embarrassed by the viral comments. But I do not feel bad for them at all, because they needed to learn that lesson before they went out into the real world. Life is too short to be mean, and it is definitely too short to let someone push your grandmother off a bench, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat if I had to. The sun is setting over the cornfields now, and it is a beautiful evening in Illinois, and I am just thankful for my family, and for the fact that I can still make a difference in this world, even if it is just by sitting on a bench and eating a sandwich at the perfect time. Marcus is practicing his free throws in the driveway, and the sound of the ball hitting the pavement is the most peaceful sound I know, and I am just a normal mom who did something extraordinary for the people she loves. I hope this story serves as a reminder to everyone that kindness is a choice, and if you choose to be a bully, you might just find yourself facing off against someone like me, who knows exactly how to ruin your day with a smile and a very smelly lunch. This is the life I chose, and I love every single minute of it, and I am proud to be a woman who stands her ground and protects her own, and I think that is the most important thing any of us can do in this long and crazy life we are living. I will keep going to the games, and I will keep bringing the cushion for Dorothy, and I will always keep an extra egg salad sandwich in my bag, just in case I need to defend our territory again. Because a mother's work is never truly done, and I am always ready for the next challenge that comes my way. The end of the tournament was just the beginning of a new chapter for us, where we realized that we are stronger together, and that no one can take away our joy unless we let them. And I am never going to let that happen ever again, as long as I am breathing the air of this great state and living in this wonderful house with the people who matter most to me. Every time we drive past the sports complex, now Dorothy gives a little wave, and we both share a private look that says everything we need to say without a single word being spoken. It is our little secret victory, and it feels better than any trophy or any medal, because it was a victory of the heart and a victory for all the grandmothers out there who deserve to sit down and watch their grandsons play the game they love without being bothered by people who do not understand what family truly means. I am Linda and I am 52, and I am a force to be reckoned with, and I am happy and I am at peace, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be in this world, and that is the best feeling of all. The basketball season is almost over, but the memories will last forever, and the lesson will stay with those girls for the rest of their lives, and I hope they become better people because of it. But even if they do not, I know that I did my part to make the world a little bit more fair for one afternoon in July. The lights are flickering on in the neighborhood, and it is time to go inside and start dinner, and I am smiling because I know that I am a hero in the eyes of my mother-in-law, and that is the only audience I ever really cared about anyway. Good night, Springfield, and good night to all the people who stand up for what is right, and I will see you at the next game with my bag packed, and my head held high, and a heart full of love, and a little bit of mischief for anyone who dares to try and take our spot on the bench. It was a long day, but it was a good day, and it was a day that I will never forget for as long as I live, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about it as much as I enjoyed living it. We are all just trying to get by, and sometimes we have to be a little bit petty to keep the balance of the world in check, and I am more than happy to do my part whenever it is necessary for the good of the family. The story is over now, but the feeling of winning stays with me, and I am ready for whatever tomorrow brings, because I know I can handle it with grace and a really loud sandwich wrapper. Thank you for listening to my tale of revenge, and remember to always look out for the people you love, because they are the only ones who truly matter in the end. Marcus just made 10 shots in a row, and he is shouting for me to come look, and I have to go now because my family needs me, and that is the most important job in the whole wide world. I will always be the one sitting in the middle of the photo if it means my family is safe and happy and respected, and I think that is a pretty good way to live a life. Goodbye for now, and stay kind to one another out there in the world. I am going to go give Dorothy a hug and see what she wants for dinner, because she is the queen of our house, and she deserves nothing but the best from all of us every single day. The crickets are starting to chirp, and the air is finally cooling down, and everything is just as it should be in my corner of the world. I am so glad I could share this with you, and I hope it made you smile, or at least made you think twice about where you put your camera next time you are at a public park or a gym. We are all in this together, and we should act like it every single day of our lives. My name is Linda, and this was my perfect petty revenge, and I would not change a single thing about it if I had to go back and do it all again. It was a masterpiece of motherhood, and I am proud of it. Peace and love to everyone. The end.